Hi, guys. I'm coming on in prior to the episode, so I can just give you a little bit of an explanation for the September episode from Next Take Podcast. So, this episode, we talked about bog bodies. This was actually a quick addition the um to the list because we were only going to be doing the first nobody case. That was one that happened in the UK back in 1660. But it really was a case that I couldn't yield a lot of information from. Um, and really, spoiler alert, wasn't really a nobody case. But nonetheless, um, I ended up adding an additional episode that particular week with Bog Bodies. So, yeah, you can head on over and listen to the full episode on over at Next Day Podcast, which the link will be in the show notes. And if you're interested in listening to that Nobody case in the UK, it will be on that feed, that main feed, which the link will go to that entire feed. It'll just be one up from that one. And of course, we have our other episodes from September that you can also take part in. But that's basically it, y'all. That is it for me. I'm going to stop talking now and transition you over to the episode. I hope you enjoy it.
What's up, everyone? This is the Next Day Podcast with Mikal
And Nika.
where we have conversation on different topics. So, today is the second part of yesterday's episode.
Mhm.
You want to explain that to Nika?
Yeah, so yesterday, in case you missed it, we talked about kind of the origins of the
Mm-hmm.
first quote unquote nobody case,
Mm-hmm.
which originated in the UK back in 1660. But
Right.
because it was, a little bit of a shorter episode, decided to do an extra on the same kind of topic. So today's topic is we're going to be talking about bog bodies. Now,
Mm,
Mikkel, have you heard about bog bodies?
never heard of anything like that in my
Okay.
whole entire life.
I'll be sending you photos throughout.
Mm-hmm.
This is such a fascinating topic. Um, I will admit I first heard this on Morbid podcasts many years
Mm-hmm.
back,
Mm-hmm.
but I thought this was one of the most fascinating topics.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think maybe why it's so fascinating to me is because it kind of makes me think of like mummies. And like I've talked about the fact that I'm so into all of that.
Right.
Like I've seen, like, when King Tut was touring around, like I saw King Tut and I was just, it's just fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of around that same premise, but it's a little different. We'll
Mm-hmm.
get into it. It's such a
Right.
fascinating topic. So
Okay. Right.
a bog body is a human cadaver that has been naturally mummified in what is called a peat bog. Such bodies, sometimes known as bog people, are both geographically and chronologically widespread, having been dated between 8000 BC and the Second World War. So, in the 20th century. The common factors of bog bodies are that they have been found in peat and are at least partially preserved, or in some cases fully preserved. However, the actual levels of preservation vary widely from immaculately preserved to mere skeletons. So, right now, I'm going to send you one of the most famous bog bodies.
Right.
Um, it's not gruesome in any way, but I, just want to warn you, it is a body, but
Mm-hmm.
you're going to see the first one now. Just kind of see that picture there. And let me know what you think.
Okay. I see it.
Yeah. This one is the Tulland Man.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the most, there's another one that's pretty well known, but he's one of the more well known. So I think
Right.
we do talk about him a little bit. a
Mhm,
little later on, but he's one of the like you can see his face, it's
mhm, mhm,
immaculately preserved. It's it's just fascinating. Anyways, due to the unusual conditions of peat bogs, highly acidic water, low temperature, and a lack of oxygen, the soft tissue of bog bodies can be remarkably well preserved in comparison to typical ancient human remains. The high levels of acidity can tan their skin and preserve internal organs, but inversely dissolve the calcium phosphate of bone. Another thing that also happens with some bog bodies, which I will show you as we get to it, is some of them, like their hair turns red. That's another thing that happens with bog bodies. It's just
mhm.
there's no like I think there is a reason why that happens, but it's so crazy that probably someone who did not have red hair in life ends up
Mhm.
having red hair
I have
in
seen
death.
well, I don't know if in death?
Well, when their body,
Not
yeah.
alive. Not alive,
No,
right?
no, no. There's one in
Okay.
particular that I'm thinking of. It's a woman and her hair is braided and
Mhm,
her hair is red. And she most likely did not have red hair in life.
mhm, mhm,
She most likely was brunette.
mm,
So it's crazy because the bogs are the reason why
mhm.
that happens.
So do men have, can get that too, or is just like just
There's a
women?
picture of a man who
Mhm,
has red hair as well.
mm,
Yeah,
mhm.
yeah,
Okay,
it can happen with
okay,
both genders.
right.
Um,
I think I
so
see I don't know if that's a call a bog body. I don't know.
mm,
I seen a guy with red hair before, like, he had black, but his hair was, like, basically
like
red.
his skin was black, but his hair was red.
Yeah.
Yeah, it probably was a bog body because I that might be one of them that I'm thinking of.
Mhm,
But
mhm,
well, I think that I have a picture of him. If I don't,
mhm,
then we
mhm,
can always Google it. But I'm
mhm.
pretty sure I do have a picture of him.
Yeah,
So we'll see.
I remember seeing a person like that in Salvation Army, and it was it caught me off guard. I don't
Oh,
know.
this was a person who was alive.
Oh, okay, never mind.
No, no, no. Are you saying this
My
was a person alive, or this was a
yes,
person?
yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay. Well, no, that wouldn't be necessarily a bog body, but
Oh, okay, then
it's
my
that's
bad.
unusual though, because it happens more
Mhm,
so with
mhm,
the bog bodies. It has
mhm,
to do with the peat. It's the
mm.
reason why their hair is turning red, like when they've are buried.
Okay, I see,
So
I see.
but in
My bad.
life, they didn't have red hair, especially
Oh, okay.
because of where most of them are originated from.
Uh-huh,
Red hair isn't typical,
mhm,
so
hmm,
that's why. So in
interesting.
that case, I don't know what's up there.
Yeah, no, like,
That's not
'cause, like,
typical.
it didn't look the person that had the red hair didn't look dyed, it just, like, just it was just red naturally red, it just, like, he
Okay.
had a black hair and naturally
Hmm.
red, so, like, I was wondering if that's a example of that, but I guess not,
No, because they're dead.
it's
Bog
yeah,
bodies
okay, yeah,
are
my
dead.
bad.
Yeah.
Apologize, yeah, go ahead.
Um, so the high levels of acidity can tan their skin and preserve. I said that already. So the natural protein keratin present in skin, hair, nails, wool, and leather is resistant to the acidic conditions of peat bogs.
Mm,
The oldest known bog body is the skeleton of some of these names I'm going to butcher. I'm going to try. Bergerk man from
mhm, mhm,
Denmark, which
mhm,
has been dated to 8000 BC during the Mesolithic period.
mm,
The oldest fleshed bog body is that of Cashel man, which I do think I have a picture of him,
mhm,
which dates to 2000 BC during the Bronze Age. The overwhelming majority of bog bodies, including examples such as the Tulland man, who I just showed you, Grabal man, and Lindau man,
mhm,
date to the Iron Age and have been found in Northwest Europe, particularly Denmark,
mhm,
Germany, the
mhm,
Netherlands, the United Kingdom, Sweden, Poland, and Ireland. Such
mm,
Iron Age bog bodies show a number of similarities, such as violent deaths and a lack of clothing.
mhm,
So you'll be kind of seeing the pattern of that a little later,
right,
leading many archaeologists to believe that they were killed and deposited in bogs as a part of a widespread cultural tradition of human sacrifice or
mhm,
executed as criminals.
Mm,
Bogs may have historically been seen as liminal places,
mhm,
positively connected to another world, which might welcome contaminating items otherwise dangerous to the living. More recent theories postulate the bog people were perceived as social outcasts or quote unquote witches, as legal hostages killed in anger over broken treaty arrangements or as victims of an unusual death,
mhm,
eventually buried in bogs according to traditional customs.
mm,
The German scientist Alfred Dieck published a catalog of more than 1,800 bog bodies that he had counted between 1939 and 1986, but most were unverified by documents or archaeological finds.
mhm,
A 2002 analysis of Dieck's work by German archaeologists concluded that much of his work was unreliable, which that sucks. I hate when that happens.
mm.
Countering Dieck's supposed findings of more than 1,400 bog bodies, a more recent study finds the number of documented bog bodies to be closer to 122. So, way smaller than that,
Wow,
guys.
crazy.
hmm The most recent bog bodies are those of soldiers killed in the wetlands of the Soviet
Mm,
Union during the Second World War. So it's interesting that like this was something that was happening as early in the 20th century.
mhm, mm,
Maybe not as intentional,
mm,
maybe, but like it was something that was happening. So that's kind of crazy. Um, the preservation of bog bodies in peat bags is a natural phenomenon and not the result of human mummification processes like what the Egyptians would do.
mm,
It is caused by the unique physical and biochemical composition of the bogs.
mhm,
Different types of bogs can affect the mummification process differently.
mm,
Raised bogs best preserve the corpses, whereas fens and transitional bogs tend to preserve harder tissues, such as the skeleton, rather than the soft tissue.
mm,
A limited number of bogs have the correct conditions for preservation of mammalian tissue. Most of these are located in colder climates near bodies of salt water. So, for example, in the area of Denmark where the Holliskar woman was recovered, salty air from the North Sea blows across the Jutland wetlands
mhm,
um, and provides an ideal environment for the growth of peat. As new peat replaces the old peat, the older material underneath rots and releases humic acid, also known as bog acid. The bog acids with pH levels similar to vinegar preserve human bodies in the same way as fruit is preserved by pickling.
mm.
That's kind of like so crazy. That also could explain like the red hair that happens for some of them. That
Yeah,
could explain that.
yeah.
In addition, peat bogs form in areas lacking drainage and hence are characterized by almost completely anaerobic conditions. This environment, highly acidic and devoid of oxygen, denies the
Mm,
prevalent subsurface aerobic organisms any opportunity to initiate decomposition. Researchers discovered that preservation also requires that the body is placed in the bog during the winter or early spring when the water temperature is cold, so less than 4 degrees Celsius or 39 degrees Fahrenheit.
mhm,
This allows bog acids to saturate the tissue before decay can begin. Bacteria are unable to grow rapidly enough for decomposition at temperatures under 4 degrees Celsius.
mm.
Um, the bog chemical environment involves a completely saturated acidic environment where considerable concentrations of organic acids, which contribute most to the low pH of bog bodies, and aldehydes are present. Layers of spog sphagnum, which
Mhm,
are compacted layers of irregular mosses and other peat debris, and peat assist in preserving the cadavers of enveloping the tissue in a cold, immobilizing matrix, impeding water circulation and any oxygenation. There we go.
mm, mhm,
Um, we'll kind of go into the different ages and kind of what Bog bodies kind of meant for those ages.
mhm,
So Mesolithic and the Bronze Age, or to the Bronze Age. So the oldest bog body, as we talked about, has been identified as the coal butcher, yeah, from Denmark,
Mhm.
which has been dated to 8,000 BC during the Mesolithic period. Around 3900 BC, agriculture was introduced to Denmark either through cultural exchange or by migrating farmers, marking the beginning of the Neolithic in the region. It was during the early part of the Neolithic period that a number
Mhm.
of human corpses that were interred in the area's peat bogs left evidence that there had been resistance to its introduction. A disproportionate number of the early Neolithic bodies found in Danish bogs were aged between 16 and 20, so
Mhm.
very young, at the time of their death and deep deposition.
Mhm.
And suggestions have been put forward that they were either human sacrifices or criminals, as we talked about, executed for their socially deviant behavior. Um, the vast majority of the bog bodies that have been discovered date from the Iron Age, a period of time when peat bogs covered a much larger area of northern Europe. Many of these Iron Age bodies bear a number of similarities, indicating a known cultural tradition of killing and depositing these people in a certain manner. Why that was
Mhm.
happening? Because humans. These
Right.
pre-Roman Iron Age people lived in sedentary communities and built villages. Their society was hierarchical. They were agriculturalists, raising animals in captivity, as well as growing crops. In some parts of Northern Europe, they also fished. Although independent of the Roman Empire, which dominated Southern Europe at this time, the inhabitants traded with the Romans. For
Mhm.
these people, the bogs held some sort of liminal significance, and indeed, they placed into them votive offerings intended for the other world, often of neck rings, wristlets, or ankle rings made of bronze or more rarely gold.
Mhm.
So I guess that kind of led to them putting bodies in there, but it is widely speculated that the Iron Age bog bodies were thrown into the bog for similar reasons, and that they were therefore examples of human sacrifice to the gods.
Mhm.
As humans. Explicit reference to the practice of drowning slaves who had washed the cult image of Nerthus and were subsequently ritually drowned to Tactius
Mhm.
Germania, which I guess is a god, suggesting that the bog bodies were sacrificial victims, may be contrasted with a separate account in which victims of punitive execution were pinned in bogs using hurdles.
Mhm.
It's horrible. Many bog bodies show signs of being stabbed. Well, again, we're going to see that trend in a bit.
Yeah.
Stabbed, bludgeoned, hanged, or strangled, or a combination of these methods. In some cases, the individual had been beheaded. Then we will talk about one that was.
Right.
Um, so usually the corpses were naked, sometimes with some items of clothing with them, particularly headgear. The clothing is believed to have decomposed while in the bog for so long. In a number of cases, twigs, sticks, or stones were placed on top of the body, sometimes in a cross formation, and at other times, forked sticks had been driven into the peat to hold the corpse down. According to the archaeological PV globe, this probably indicates the wish to pin the dead man firmly into the bog or woman, because not just men. Some bodies show signs of torture, such as old Krogan man who had deep cuts beneath his nipples. Oh,
Wow.
oh.
Interesting.
Um,
Mhm.
some pug bodies, such as the Tullen man from Denmark, have been found with the rope used to strangle them still around their necks. Now,
Mhm.
I don't know if I could see that in the picture I sent you.
Right.
Oh, yeah, you can. You can see it. Oh,
Yeah.
God, it's
Yeah, I
horrible.
see it too. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Mm. Mm.
Similarly to Tullen man, Yeed girl, who was found in the Netherlands and was approximately 16 at her time of death, has a woolen rope with a sliding knot still tied around her neck.
Mm.
Yeet girl's remains showed evidence indicating that she had sustained trauma prior to her death. which is so bad.
Yeah.
Aside from the rope preserved around her neck indicating strangulation, near her left clavicle, there are marks indicating that she was also subjected to sharp force trauma.
Mm,
Yeat Girl and other bog bodies in Ireland had the hair on one side of their heads closely cropped, although this could be due to one side of their head being exposed to oxygen for a longer period of time than the other.
mm,
Some of the bog bodies seem consistently to have been members of the upper class. Their fingernails are manicured, and tests on hair protein routinely record good nutrition.
mhm,
Strabo records that the Celts practice auguries on the entrails of human victims. Jesus.
mm,
Um, on some bog bodies, such as the Weirding men found in the northern Netherlands, the entrails have been partly drawn out through incisions.
mm.
Why do humans suck so bad? Modern techniques of forensic analysis now suggest that some injuries, such as broken bones and crushed skulls, were not the
Mhm.
result of torture, but rather due to the weight of the bog. So that could potentially have been postmortem, I hope.
Wow.
For example, the fractured skull of the Grabal man
Mhm,
was at one time thought to have been caused by a blow to the head. However, a CT scan of him by Danish scientists determined his skull was fractured due to pressure from the bog long after his death.
mm,
So that kind of helps, I guess. So in North America, a number of skeletons found in Florida have been called bog people. These skeletons are the remains of people buried in peat between 5,000 and 8,000 years ago during the early and middle Archaic period in the Americas. The peat at the Florida sites is loosely consolidated and much wetter than in European bogs. As a result, the skeletons are well preserved, but skin and most internal organs have not been preserved. An exception is that preserved brains have been found in nearly 100 skulls at Wendover Archaeological site and in one of several burials at Little Salt Spring. Textiles were also preserved with some of the burials. The oldest known textiles in Florida, a 7,000-year-old presumed peat pond burial site, the Minnesota Key Offshore Archaeological Site, has been found under 21 feet of water near Sarasota. Archaeologists believe that early archaic Native Americans buried the bodies in a freshwater pond when the sea level was much lower. The
mm.
peat in the ponds helped preserve the skeletons.
Okay.
So, until the mid 20th century, it was not readily apparent at the time of discovery whether a body had been buried in a bog for years, decades, or centuries. However, modern forensic and medical technologies, such as radiocarbon dating, have been developed that allow researchers to more closely determine the age of the burial, the person's age at death, and other details.
Mhm,
Scientists have been able to study the skin of the bog bodies, reconstruct their appearance, which I've seen that before too, and even determine what their last meal was from their stomach contents since peat marsh preserves soft internal tissue, which is, think about it. We can know what a body, what they ate, their last
mhm,
meal was
mhm,
when they died like
mhm,
thousands of years ago.
mm.
That's
Interesting. Hmm.
science.
Yeah. Science,
Science is
science
incredible.
does that. Yeah.
Yeah.